Awakening Souls. This is Maria from Earth Angel of Christ, and along with my mentors Karen and Barry, who are from Way of Christ as well as Birthing the Luminous Self. All those websites will be linked down in the description box along with our emails in case any of you are wanting to take a look or wanting to contact us with any questions you might have or to find out more about the Universal Christ or the healing work that we share. I'm also wanting to share with everyone before we start the books that Karen and Barry have written that have really helped me along in my journey, and they might also be helpful in yours. It is a trilogy that is collectively cohesive, but can very much so be read independently and understood perfectly fine without having read one before the other. And a couple of things that I really liked about the books were Soul Awakening told their own personal stories and, collectively and separately and collectively. And also about the transmissions and the things that they experienced, as well as talking about things like the Shroud of Turin and talking about conversations that they had personally with Christ. So there's all sorts of great stuff in the books. Those just happen to be a few of my favorite. So like I said, it's Soul Awakening, the journey from ego to essence, agents of grace, fulfilling our destiny, blessing the world. And we are the awakening Christ, the birth of the luminous divine self. And again, I will link where everyone can find Karen and Barry's books down in the description box below. You can find them on their website. They're also on Amazon. All those links will be down below, along with anything else that I can think of. So there will be all sorts of goodies down there below in the description box, so please be sure to check that out. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And all that being said, our topic for today is going to be twin flames. I'm very excited about this topic and talking about it with you, Karen and Barry, because not only have you been in union and in your own twin flame journey for over 30 years, but you have such an untouched perspective because you're not out there in there's so much circling around in the twin flame community, talking about all sorts of things and all sorts of misconceptions and things that I think are really hindering people on their journeys, romanticizing this whole idea of being a twin flame. That and a lot of the people out there talking about it aren't even in their own unions. So I think it's really important to hear from a couple like you who have been in the business for over 30 years. So that's that. I'm going to hand it over to you and let you tell a little bit about your experience.
Where should we start? Well, maybe we just talk about what twin flames are, and then really hear some of, because we aren't in touch with what's going on in the community, and we do want to speak to this community of people who are really interested in this, hopefully via your questions, because we don't know what their considerations are. We would be guessing at that, so that would be good. And then maybe we'll tell a little bit about our relationship, really what our experience of a twin flame relationship is.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean it's going to be everybody's experience, but it's probably going to be interesting to people to hear what it's actually like to live with your divine counterpart for a long time and to experience how that is a part of your spiritual awakening journey. Because, that seems to be the core reason we were brought together, is to catalyze the awakenings that we're each experiencing, and to have those individual awakenings synergize so that there's something greater that comes out of the connection of the two beings. That you could say there's a collective soul or a relationship soul that forms itself really in any relationship, but especially in one where you're both consecrated to awakening beyond all else. And you put God or the divine first before all human considerations. Most relationships are more about satisfying my human needs, my human desires, my human yearnings or wants. When we're in that phase, we have a list of what my partner must have, all the qualities, all the appearance things, all the, the criteria that, okay, I'll know it if all these conditions are met. Well, one of the things we found out right away is that that list might as well have been thrown out the window, because it didn't have a lot to do with what unfolded at all. Our human selves often felt that, no, this isn't the kind of person that I thought I would be with. And yet we are totally clear that God brought us together. And you really can't argue with that. So we'll get into more about that in a little bit. But I just wanted to say that.
It's going to end up being a few videos, I think.
It could be, yeah.
Right.
Maybe we just start, because to really understand what this relationship is about, you have to understand what twin flames are in the biggest context. And we'll start with God, okay? Then get bigger than that, right? So we've talked about this in previous videos, but God's whole purpose in creation is to explore itself, is to realize its nature. And one of the ways that God does that is to fractalize itself, or basically divide itself into an infinity of little aspects of itself, like drops of the ocean, okay? That it can then experience itself through all these myriad different aspects of itself. So God is by nature spirit in the creative sense. When God is actually creating, we think about God as spirit. And the elemental of spirit is fire. And so when God individualizes itself, it creates this little piece of itself as a flame. And that flame of fire, of its spiritual essence, as soon as it's created, divides into two identical aspects. This monad, oneness, becomes a dyad. But each of those in and of themselves are a whole. Okay, they are each monads. No matter how you divide it, from God to how many pieces, it's still God. No matter how you cut it, is what it comes down to. And then these two flames go on their journeys. They dive down into the depths of creation, into human form, and over many lifetimes and many embodiments, they develop a greater and greater soul presence until that soul is fully capable of realizing the fullness of its God nature and then ascend beyond this human experience. That's the big picture.
I'm going to do this when I have a question.
Go ahead.
Just so I don't interrupt you.
No, please do that. Yeah. Please do that.
Yeah, we really want to respond to your questions, because they're not just yours. They're probably
everybody's questions.
Things that a lot of people are thinking about.
So the twin flames are always one, even though they're apparently separate. Remember, all creation is dualistic. It's polarized. It goes in duality. In the beginning, the Tao Te Ching says, in the beginning there was one, then there was the two, and then there was the 10,000 things. One, you have to have two-ness or duality to have polarity, to have a self and another, relationship, creation. If God was just God and there was nothing else, there would be nothing. There has to be self and object, okay? So it creates this duality, and these two aspects go out and do their journeys, and they weave together often many times during all those embodiments. And often, when you come down to the cycle of the last embodiment, many of them do get together in that last embodiment. It's kind of the culmination of that cycle of involution, going down into form, and then beginning the journey back. They come back together. That's happening, I suspect, with more and more people as the awakening goes on, and probably will continue to awakening. It is not what happens all the time. It's not that every twin flame gets together at the end. Some twin flames aren't even embodiment at the same time. Some of them have already ascended. and they may have ultimately very, very different relationships. But that's kind of the big picture of really what twin flames are and how this kind of journey happens.
Okay. So you're saying that everyone is born a twin flame out of the Godhead.
Yes.
But not all of them are incarnated on the planet at the same time.
True.
Okay. Now, is that done in, because they talk a lot about divine masculine and divine feminine. So is that the case? Like, it's when you're born out of the Godhead, it's it splits into the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and a certain percentage in each, like let's say 80-20 and then 80-20 in the other one?
It does. And during the many embodiments, it is also possible that each one of those flames can actually switch gender orientation and be a man or a woman back and forth. Although there tends to be, from what I've seen in my inner journeys and what I've been shown, a tendency to be one or the other. Even though you can, like I've had embodiments where I was a woman, I feel. I don't know, Karen, if you've had male embodiments.
I don't remember too many male embodiments, but I'm sure there were some. It's probably something like you said, the 20-80 percentage.
Yeah.
I remember many, many more as a woman, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So also, is there a special mission going on this planet right now, which is why there's so many of these twin flames that are incarnated at the same time on this planet right now?
Absolutely, and that I think people are intuiting that, and that to me is accurate because that's what I was told more than 30 years ago. That I was the one who became first aware that we were twin flames and we were to be together. And what Christ told me, Yeshua, Jesus, told me was that it was part of the plan for the Christing of the planet, or for the second coming, or for the collective awakening, whatever you want to call it. And that in the first coming, the first full coming of the Godhead incarnate in human form, and believe me, the Buddha and other ones did that to a degree, but Christ was the being, Jesus was the being to be able to finally fully do that. You know, he was just a long line of beings, but it was time. He couldn't be with Mary Magdalene, and Mary Magdalene could not fully Christ herself at the time. She was his twin flame. But they could not be together in the fully Christed state. The planet wasn't ready for that. The energy consciousness fields of the planet wouldn't have handled that. And as we tell you more about twin flame relationships, you'd understand why. But at the second coming, at the end time, when the planet is going to shift dimensions, it would be time for more twin flames to get together, and those individual twin flames would realize their own nature. This is critical. It's about each twin flame realizing its own nature, and then together joining those fully realized nature into a dyad. Two monads become a dyad. We could talk a lot more about that in the future, but this is really the essence of it.
I think the self-mastery is what people are really missing the point of at this time. Like I said, it's being romanticized, and it's that is a very big bonus of it, but at the same time, it's missing the entire point of the mission, and how each part has to attain self-mastery, and or else the dynamic isn't going to work, because they're a complete mirror to you. So and I think it's causing a lot of desperation, and a lot of people are counting too much on the generalized readings and things like that, and it's causing a lot of angst in people, and a lot of unnecessary anxiety, and causing them to leave relationships that they're currently in with maybe karmic partners, and chasing after this twin. And So yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that people are talking about on YouTube and whatnot is about unions being imminent. Some people think that unions are without a doubt 100% going to happen with every twin flame because of this mission. A lot of stuff talking about like runner chaser, although they're also talking about now about that stuff kind of dissolving at this point, and you just have to dissolve it within yourself, these programs and whatnot. People are interested in knowing about what colorway they might be from, or if these unions have anything to do with any particular colorway. The grid points, is it one particular grid point that they have to be in, and just basically saying that the old twin flame templates are dissolving and things like that. And it's causing a lot of people they're constantly worried about the other person, what the other person is doing, and all that kind of stuff, and not really working on. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, if they're working on themselves or not, but it just seems like there's a sense of desperation in the community.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah.
The first response is, I think that there's a lot of mentalization going on around this whole subject. And there's a lot being spread around out there that is based on thoughts and ideas and concepts about what a twin flame is or how it all works and stuff like this. But the real truth about this, as far as everything around awakening goes, is that you cannot mentalize your way into awakening. You can't mentalize your way into a twin flame relationship. Basically, God has to bring you into it. It's all happening through grace. It's all happening through you listening to that beautiful, still, small voice within you that is guiding you moment to moment, day by day, in the smallest of ways. And it's nothing to do with what your mind is thinking or deciding or conceptualizing. It's everything to do with your being able to live from your sacred center. And so that inner work happens to be what Barry and I were brought together to help people with. This is what we do. You know, we help people go beyond the mind, go beyond the ego, go beyond concepts, go beyond all ideas about everything, and drop deeper into your true self so you can really hear and find out, what am I supposed to be doing moment to moment? And how do I know the difference between living from this and living from this? And so this is the kind of stuff that goes on in our sessions. But basically, I think you've got to get in touch with your own divine self before you can really be deepening in any relationship with anyone else, whether it's a parent, a child, a boss, an employee, a friend, much less a partner. And so every relationship can be seen as a sacred thing. It's a sacred gift from God. You know, no matter what the relationship is like, all relationships can and are meant to offer us the opportunity to grow and to see ourselves and to awaken as fully as we can. And so, you know, I think it's really important to be grateful for the gift of whatever relationship we are in. And above all, to be grateful for the relationship with ourselves. Because that's our real relationship with God. When we get in touch with that inner space, that heart of hearts, sacred home inside of us, that's the God in us. That's the divine flame that is part of that, you know, endless light that is the divine. That light is living in us. And so when we're not in touch with that, the tendency is to go out there and look for answers and guidance and videos and books and workshops, and there's an entire spiritual supermarket out there that is just like overflowing with all this food. Some of it's junk food, some of it's really nourishing. There's a whole gamut in there of what's available. And the only way any of us knows what is really nourishing for me and what will really help me awaken and help me fulfill my destiny, and maybe that includes living with my twin flame in this life, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. We have to be humble about that, I think, unless we've been given direct guidance. The only thing to do is to be more in touch with our own divine self and let that be our most important relationship. And when we put that first, everything else that we are meant to know and have and be in this life will come. We can't avoid it. What's ours is going to show up.
I think that's one of the biggest problems, is that people are searching for the answers out there,
right,
and not really looking inward, and they're desperate for answers, trying to go to this reader and that reader and ask this one, what am I supposed to do? Instead of really going inward and asking themselves. Because most people don't even really know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And I did that too when I was younger. When I first met Barry, we'll tell this story in a different video probably. But yeah, when we're beginning on the path, we don't have that connection yet. And we are searching out there, all of us. We're reading, we're learning, we're studying, we're listening to other people. And that's really natural because our minds are what are starting to open up first. And as that happens, gradually at some point, we know that we have to descend into that heart of hearts, sacred space inside of us. And that's our job in life. I mean, if you watching this video are ready for that experience, this is what we're here for. This is what our lives are all about. So you can get in touch with us and we will embark on that journey, and it will be amazing, because it always is. It always is. How could it not be? It's all God. Right?
I did not really know how to go into my own soul space and really commune with myself and get answers from within before meeting you. I was on that frantic search for outside stimuli, for the lack of a better word, to try and answer these questions that I was having and stuff. And I will say that there is no substitute for being able to go inward and really feel the answer, yes or no, or
absolutely
getting your higher guidance from there. So that's definitely something priceless that you guys have helped me with.
The essence of the journey, that original flame we talk about, is always within us. It's right here, just above your heart. Actually, the sino-auricular node of the heart, where the pacemaker is where the direct connection is into the physical from our I am presence, or our God self, our monad, which resides above our head but anchors here. The whole process of awakening is coming into communion with that flame presence, having it expand and grow, and as it does, it becomes more luminous and starts to shed off all those layers of false self, all the layers of ego personality, until that flame is expanded to the point where it completely envelops and infuses all levels of our aura way out, and then we are that. And that is when moksha, liberation, or ascension occurs. That's the journey. That's what it's all about. The twin flame relationship is just a catalyst to that journey. And when two twins are ready to do that, it is like the fast track on steroids. It's like 1,000 times faster. But I'll tell you this: if you glamorize it or romanticize it and think that it is the end in and of itself, you think it is going to give you something at this human personality level, I can tell you without a doubt, you are dead wrong. It is not that at all. It is not about romance. It is not about glamour. It is not about having more, better, different of good human stuff, no matter how good that human stuff is. More abundance, more love, better sex. It's not about any of that. I can guarantee you from this 30 years of this. It's so much more than that. When you get it, that stuff won't even mean anything to you like it did before. It's all paltry, cheap costume jewelry compared to what you really get out of that, what you really get out of this. when you can really experience union with your own God self in communion with another person doing that, man, it's like, it's heaven on earth. It's like nothing you can imagine. And where you are not in touch with it, it becomes instantaneous hell on earth when you're clinging to it. It is like 1,000,000 watts of power illuminating the truth and the illusion. And unless you're connected with this, I will tell you, you will never stay in a twin flame relationship. You will not make it. Most of the twin flames we have known have not stayed together because their human selves had ideas about what that relationship was to be about. You know, the romance, all the goodies of relationship. And when it started to dismantle all their illusions, they said, I'm out of here. So there's got to be a higher consecration. And the consecration is, I want to go to God. I want to realize my true nature. And this other being and I are going to do this together on an accelerated journey. That is the only motivation or reason to be even looking at this as a possibility for yourself, in my experience.
So if you're thinking that a twin flame relationship is going to mean you will never have to look at your stuff again, you could not be more wrong. I think, you know, from what I hear you saying, Maria, a lot of people are out there trolling YouTube and looking around on the internet, and they're full of concepts that if I meet my twin, life is going to instantly become wonderful. It's going to be harmonious. It's going to be every, you know, fantasy that I've ever had about the idealized relationship. And
basically that union is like the happily ever after.
The happily ever after.
False. No.
Exactly. And our experience is that, yeah, I mean, in the big picture, it is definitely the happy ever after that our souls want. But it is not the happy ever after that our ego minds think we deserve. And so every way that each of us was stuck on certain criteria or ways that I have to have it, all that got magnified and mirrored to us like 1,000%. And it would become unbearable. To hold on to your ego stuff would become unbearable. Because you've already tasted the level of love that is possible with this person. And so when you start stepping out of that, the more you're rooted in your soul and the more you've experienced that soul connection with another being, when you go out of it, it's just agony. It is absolute agony. And you're just like, I just want to get out of this as fast as possible. And so if you're not very far along on a soul awakening journey, that looks like, I got to get out of here. This relationship is a mistake. This is killing me. This is destroying me. I'm losing myself in this. Yeah. I'm just going to go. Yeah. And so in the early days, I would try to leave. I mean, at one point, in a couple of years after we got together, I actually looked into renting a different apartment because I was like, I just need to get back in my own space. I'm losing myself in this connection. I can't deal with it anymore. And I was ready to sign on the dotted line for a lease, and my soul would not let me do it. I absolutely could not do it. Yeah, and I knew this is not your path. You can't escape this. Yeah. This is what my soul was telling me. And so, you know, it's a very, very steep path because I still had a lot of unresolved ego stuff, and probably everybody out there does too. We haven't met anybody that's beyond all their stuff. Even realized masters still have ego erupt once in a while, and we've seen plenty of that. Yeah. And so all along the way, whatever we are not complete within ourselves, whatever we have not transcended, whatever we still believe is who we are, but it isn't really, comes up. And that mirror is so powerful that you can't escape it. So I think a lot of people are out there thinking, oh, I just got to find that. That might be the desperation you mentioned. I've got to find that person because this is too painful for me to live in my stuff. I've had it with living in my stuff, right? And we all get to those points. But that is not going to be the way out.
I think it's a lot of knowing who the person is also, and, well, some of them don't, but like myself. But knowing, like, the person and then knowing their life and knowing that they're with somebody else or not being able to be with them, and it can literally start to drive someone crazy. Okay. Obsessing about it. And I think people just don't realize that self-mastery is the way.
Yeah, we can talk about this more in the next YouTube, where we talk about our own journey with all of this.
And other twins I know. I've known other twins and their dynamics, some very closely.
You might talk about some of that right now, like Shayla.
You know, all I can say is there's as many kinds of, every idea we have, the one thing we can both tell you in our journey, the truth of God is, the truth of realization is, that there are no absolutes in terms of concepts or ideas about anything. In the end, all possibilities exist and all possibilities are lived. I've known twin flames. I met someone on Kauai. She was a spiritual teacher, a very heavily overweight woman. He was a small, puny guy who was gay. They were twin flames. Go figure.
What did their relationship look like?
It was as unorthodox and undescribable as you could fathom. I won't say how they referred to each other because it's kind of rude, but it was the fat lady and the blank. And at least they had a sense of humor about it, you know. There's just no way. One of our best spiritual teachers lived in Mount Shasta, who channeled from Saint Germain and from the Ascended Masters. She was a real one. She's a saint. Her twin flame was a man named Bob, who was with another woman.
They were both married to different partners.
And when they got together, when Bob and Doris got together, they couldn't stay together. Like Bill Gom, who was Pearl's assistant years later, said, yeah, every time Pearlie and Bob got together, Pearlie's emotional body couldn't handle it.
Sparks would fly.
It was too intense.
Yeah.
They couldn't handle it. So it wasn't appropriate for them to be together. She was happily married to Jerry, and he was happily married to his wife. Right. They did their work together.
Yeah, they brought through beautiful spiritual teachings together.
Yeah.
One of them would see letters of light in the sky in front of them, and the other would write them down as I think she saw the letters, and then Bob would write down what she told him. And this is how they created discourses and books.
We have a number of books.
They worked together beautifully spiritually, but they were not meant to live together. And they understood that. They were accepting of it.
It's a spiritual union, number one. I think that's the point we want to make here.
Right.
It's a spiritual union for spiritual purposes, and it's for the evolution of those two souls in service to the planet. Now, today, I think it's true. Many are coming together to bond more closely in male-female relationships, like Karen and I. I think that's true. But that's not the primary orientation. The primary orientation is two souls awakening to their true nature and joining in union from that place of awakening.
And to help that to continue.
Two halves can't come together to make a whole. We never would have stayed together if we were not anchored in our own realization deeply enough to hold on to our realization, or we'd have been repelled apart. People say, how do I find my twin flame? Realize yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
When you've realized yourself first, you will automatically draw the reflection of that to yourself. The twin flame is just a reflection of your own nature. It will be reflected back to you in union when you achieve union with your own God self. If I could say one thing, that's what I'd say to everybody who's listening to this.
Just think about it. If you're not in touch with the divine flame in you, how could you possibly ever recognize that divine flame in somebody else and realize it was your divine counterpart?
Yeah.
If you really don't know what this feels like, what it looks like, what it sounds like, almost what it tastes like, to be anchored and rooted in your own divine self, everything else will be invisible to you.
Outer reality is nothing more than a holographic projection coming back at us of what we've realized inside of ourselves. When we realize God within inside of us, God appears outside of us as our twin flame, ready for that complete and final union and ascension.
And here's the thing, that might be an ultimate, and you know, it is a dream that I think every human soul has, and it's going to happen at some point. But as you get more in touch with who you really are in your heart of hearts, everything that comes to you is going to support your awakening and be part of your purpose. You know, if you're to have children, those souls will be drawn into your life. If you are to have a soulmate relationship or any other type of relationship with friends, with loved ones, with neighbors, with people in your workplace, all of that is going to reflect your soul more and more fully as you drop into who you really are more fully. And so, you know, life is an endless continuum of experiences and of evolution. It's never going to stop. And so there's no need to feel that you have to jump past a whole bunch of intermediary steps to get to that one final one.
No.
Basically, what I would say to people is work with your situation right now.
Yeah.
If you're having problems with a neighbor, try to fix them. Try to look inside yourself and see how you might be blaming and projecting them for the problem, and try to see what is it in me that's got a part of this dynamic. And try to heal that, try to fix that, try to see that, and then make it right with that person. The more we do that, the more humble we can be and realize that every single situation in our lives is an opportunity to awaken. And if we're willing to work with those, God is going to go, yay, you know, now I can send more. You know, I can send something that's even got more possibilities.
I want to do a video on that alone, what you were just talking about.
Okay, that sounds
so
great.
I think that'll be a good topic for the future as well.
That sounds great, because as we hear ourselves talk, we learn things too all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people tend to see themselves as a victim of the world and don't really see it as the world reacting to them. So I think that's going to be a really good topic for the future too. So thank you for bringing that up.
Great.
I also wanted to tell people that your in-depth story of your twin flame union is in your first book, right?
Right. I just happen to have a copy of it right here.
It's a good piece of it. Yeah, how we got together is in there, and then our life thereafter.
Actually, our life before and our life after.
Yeah,
we met in our late 30s, and we actually came together in our late 30s. And so we had many relationships before that. We had a long spiritual journey before that on our own. And then we got together, and then, you know, an equally long spiritual journey after that now. So that happened about half a lifetime ago, almost.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting progression to realize that here's another, you know, myth buster, that life and evolution and awakening do not stop when you meet your divine counterpart. In fact, it intensifies.
Yeah, it accelerates.
It absolutely accelerates. And so if you are wanting a fast path home, this is a great one. But so is working with whatever God has put in front of you. That is key to the process.
God will lead you when it's time.
Right.
God's going to, you know, we can't as personal human beings make this happen in any way. I don't care how many practices we do, how many YouTubes we watch, how many things we learn about twin flames. That's not going to do it.
We have to be humble.
It has to happen.
It's all happening through grace.
Yeah.
And we can pray for that. We can ask for that. We can make ourselves available.
Absolutely.
And, you know, one way that I often do that is to say, God, whatever I need to move through in order to be ready for whatever it is to happen next, take me through it.
Yeah.
And then you stand back and watch, because you will be taken through it, and it might not be easy. But if it's what you really want, that's one fast way to get there. Yeah. Okay, God, do whatever you need to do in me so that I can be ready for my divine counterpart. That's a prayer that anyone can use. And you can always say that or something higher. If there is something higher or more immediate that you need to, you know, experience or deal with, that'll be coming too, you know, that'll be shown.
Seek God in union with your true self, which is one, above all, and everything else, including what happens with your twin flame, will take care of itself.
So would you say that unions are imminent they just may not look like the way that we perceive we're romanticizing them to be.
I think the union that is imminent is the union with our own true self.
Okay.
And that is the union then that will attract all kinds of other unions with other groups of beings and individuals, and one of those is going to be more twin flames getting together. But there's going to be all kinds of gatherings of souls on all levels. The reunion of twin flames will be one of those, and a very important one, which we can talk about next time or whenever.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you so much for sharing this information with everybody. I think it's going to really help a lot of people clear some stuff up. And I really enjoy your talks as usual.
We do too. Thanks, Maria.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Love and blessings, everybody.